Hey everyone, let's talk about the two books I finished on the weekend, or rather, I finished one and I decided not to finish another. Let's start with the one I finished. It's a non-fiction at the Existentialist Café. And I went into this thinking I get a lot out of it about the philosophy, existentialism. Turns out I get a lot about the philosophers. So this is focusing on last century's philosophy, existentialism, and phenomenology, and the main philosophers in this idea, who started it, who developed it, who furthered it. So there's a lot of philosopher names, and I kind of liked it and I didn't like it at the same time. There's a lot of information about the people, not enough about the philosophy. In the beginning, we start with phenomenology and we learn about the idea and the philosophers behind that. We learn a little bit about them, and it reads a little bit like a historical fiction. Then we move into the 20s and 30s and into the Second World War and the existentialism and the philosophers around there. This part, the happenings there, sometimes read like a spy novel. And it really was captivating and interesting, all the things that the philosophers were involved in and did during the war years. After the war, we have a lot of diverging opinions, clashing ideas, and it reads a little bit like a gossipy column with the friends falling out and what happened and things. So it focuses a lot on the people, the philosophers. Every now and again, the philosophy is mentioned and explained, but that part was hardly understandable. I found it very complicated, not knowing the philosophy very well, and it didn't explain it very well. It focused more on the philosophers than on the philosophy. For that, it was rather interesting. I also liked how the author always explained how it affected her when she started reading it first and the impact it had on her life, and also looking back now that she's older and researched this book and everything. So I don't know if I want to recommend it. I think it's very recommendable if you want to know more about the people involved and all the philosophers summarized in one book. What it didn't do is make me want to read more of the philosophy works of the philosophers, which I had intended at some point in my life. So I don't know how I think about that. And it definitely does not explain the philosophy enough. So that was a nonfiction I finished. I also didn't finish a fictional nonfiction, Davy Jones and the Six. I listened to this on audiobook, which was a pro, because I don't think that I would have gone halfway through the book without the audio. Now, this is a sort of non-fictional account of a fictional band. That's what it's supposed to feel like. The whole book is written in interview style snippets. So on audio, you get a lot of different people giving you their thoughts and their opinions, and they're retelling what happened in the past. On audio, this works rather well, although it gets annoying and tedious very fast. I cannot imagine that this works on paper, because sometimes you just have one person saying 2 or 3 words and interjecting things. And it is kind of annoying if you have to read that. It's easy to follow on audio, but it doesn't really draw you in. So Daisy Jones is supposedly this famous band from the 60s and 70s, and for some reason they split up, and this book is supposed to tell you the story. So it's pretending to be nonfiction about a band, but the band isn't real. And that, I think, makes it harder to get into the book. I was wondering the whole time why I should care about these people that sounded aloof, annoying, pitying, asshole-like, all the things. And the more the story progressed and they talked about their past, the more bored I got. What I mainly discovered after listening to it halfway through is that we have 2 main characters that are basically the interesting part, Billy and Daisy, but I didn't like either of them. I didn't like how they narrated things, and it became more and more apparent that they didn't really have a personality. They were just stand-ins for a stock figure-like personality or character type. They didn't really have their own personality to stand out, which is, I think, what you need in a book that's supposed to be about this major band. I really didn't see the attraction why anyone would listen to their music and put up with them. The side characters, most of the other band members, you could have left them out. They didn't add anything to the story. At least not in the first half. Maybe that changes later. And the overall story, nothing really happened that was new, that was exciting, that was different. And why not just read a real band's memoirs or biography or autobiography? Because then you're interested in the people and they have more to talk about. This band mostly stood alone. There were no references to other people, well, there were references to places, but I don't know if they were real places or not. But there were no interactions with others. And if you've read a memoir or any other nonfiction about a band or musicians, you have a lot of interactions with other musicians where they meet, where their paths cross and anything. Nothing like that. At least not in the first half, I have to say. Maybe that changed. Another thing that got on my nerves was how they talked. The report was so 2019 colored that it was hard to imagine that they said the same things in the 60s and the 70s. It sounded so perfectly correct in a politically correct, morally way that, yes, it's good to look at it and reflect on things that happened in the past, but it's basically, it felt a little bit excusatory or highlighting things that they probably didn't look at the same way in the past. And I don't know, it just felt off. So I decided to stop listening to it and not going to care about what's going to happen, as, well, it's pretty predictable. I would like to know if you have read it, if you agreed with the hype and loved it, and what you loved about it, or if you also read it and were disappointed and got caught in the hype and thought, yeah, not as much as I expected. All right, let's talk about these two books in comments. Thank you for watching and bye-bye.